welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. Ready to air proven pest control segments and analytical insights. Well, the analytical advantage solving past problems with computer science. One of his advocacy, none other than Mr. Dog Wampler. Welcome, Mr. Dog, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. My name is Doug Wampler. I own and operate a Buzzkill Pest Control in Indianapolis, in Indiana, and I worked in the IT field for about 30 years in data science, and I retired from that in December 2024. Started a pest control company, and I found that my what I learned in data science actually applies to pest control, and I that allows me to select the best treatment for the environment and the pest, and I've had pretty good success doing that.
Hmm. Interesting, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Dog. Thank you. And today let's talk about, as I said, the analytical advantage solving past problems with computer science. What it's all about.
All right, I can I can provide an example. Uh, Over the summer, I had a call for an empty home for roaches, and I went there, stuck my key in the lock, and unlocked the door. And when I unlocked it, a roach came crawling out of the keyhole. Then I opened the door and went in, and as I pushed the door open and went in, roaches fell from the door frame, into my hair, on my shoulders, and down my shirt. So roaches typically congregate in the kitchen. So if you're seeing that many on the front porch, it's a pretty serious problem. Uh, so I went in there, and I can tell you the infestation level was it was apocalyptic. I typically grade them from 1 to 5, 1 being minimal, and 5 being apocalyptic. And I've only seen a couple fives, and this was one of them. So I went in there and used a product that I thought was going to wipe them out. The product was called Fipronil plus C, and I sprayed that in there. I'm pretty confident it was gonna wipe them out, or at least do away with a bunch of them. And I came back a week later, and there were the same number of roaches. Uh, and I That surprised me, so I started doing some research, and what I found was that the generation of exterminators before me, my best friend's dad, when I was in high school, he was an exterminator, and he used a product for roaches called dieldrin. And I researched both those products, and fipronil is in the same class of insecticide as dieldrin. And roaches, they breed exponentially, right? One egg carrying female can turn into about 1 million roaches in 60 days. Uh, so those roaches at that place had been exposed to dieldrin or fipronil repeatedly, and over a long period of time, because of their high reproductive rate, they became immune to dieldrin and other chemicals in that class, like fipronil. Now, this is important because many, uh, commercial roach baits, even the ones that exterminators use, contain fipronil. That's the active ingredient. So I Anyway, I made a note of that in my data, right? Found some fipronil resistant roaches. So uh, before treatment, it was a 5. After treatment, it was a 5. So I applied a different chemical in a different chemical class. It's Spectre 2 SC, and that's chlorphenapyr, which is in a completely different group than dieldrin and fipronil. And I sprayed that one time and applied a bait containing not fipronil but abamectin, a chemical also in a different class than either fipronil or chlorphenapyr. And I went back a week later, and every roach in that property was gone, completely roach free. There were dead roaches everywhere. Uh, so that with one treatment with chlorphenapyr, we went from an infestation level of 5, which is apocalyptic, down to a 0. So I, added that to my data. And once you collect enough data about, chemicals and their effectiveness, you can run a program like the R programming language, which is a statistical language that will kind of tell you with a fair degree of certainty what chemical is going to be most effective for what pest. And in Indianapolis, if you get roaches, you're probably getting German roaches, and of all the roaches, they're the hardest to get rid of, and they reproduce the fastest. So, like I said, one egg-carrying female can turn into 1,000,000 roaches in 60 days. And the population tops out about 500 individual roaches per square foot in your home. So if you can imagine 500 roaches in a 12 inch by 12 inch area, that's a lot. If there were 500 roaches in a 12 by 12 area on your kitchen floor, you wouldn't be able to see the floor surface. So that's how many there are. And I've treated for a lot of roaches, and what I've found is that out of all there are many commercially available pesticides, but they're divided into classes based on how they affect the pest. So there are lots of insecticides, but a lot fewer classes. And what I've found is that there are only about four different insecticides that will reliably kill German roaches. So they're hard to get rid of. They're hard for exterminators to get rid of. They're hard for homeowners to get rid of. And because I've done this analysis, when somebody hires me to kill German roaches, I can get rid of them. I think the longest it's ever taken me to get rid of them is 3 monthly treatments. And we offer quarterly and monthly service in our business. And the only time I recommend that people sign up for a monthly service is if we're dealing with German roaches. So they're hard to get rid of, but it can be done.
Yeah, it can
And
be done, people, through Mr. Dog. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Again, Mr. Dog. So, on the surface, computer science and etymology seems like distant fields. What is the initial spark of a problem that made you see their profound connection?
well, a lot of guys that work in IT do it because working with computers is it's cool, and they like the technology angle, and they're kind of less concerned about the business problem. Um, in my previous career, I didn't really start making professional progress really as far as promotions and raises until I stopped worrying so much about working with the coolest, most up to date technology, and I started focusing on the business problem, right? What business problem are you trying to solve? So um, the last kind of big thing I worked on in my IT career was fraud detection, and through analysis and data science, you can kind of figure out what the warning signs of fraud are. And one of the primary warning signs is the more money that's involved in a transaction, the higher likelihood that it's going to be fraud, right? So as I moved through my career, I kind of learned to not think of things in technology terms, but to think about things in terms of a business problem. Uh, and if you know computer science and you think in terms of the business problem that some business owner manager's trying to solve, um, if you think in those terms, you can, well, just every problem in the world starts to look like a computer science problem. You're like, well, I can solve that problem. And I, as one example, so yeah, now I'm using computer science to attack pest control. In the past, I used computer science to attack fraud detection. And you probably can't tell this from looking at my LinkedIn profile, but I'm a big bowler. I like bowling a lot. And I started keeping track of my bowling scores and the date that I would go bowling and what bowling center I was in and what kind of ball I used and if it was a shiny ball or a coarse ball. And what I found out was that the bowling center lane conditions change from dry or oily, slippery, through the seasons. So earlier in the year, they're kind of dry, and as the year goes on, they get more oily. So by the time you get into the summer, July, August, those lanes are pretty oily, and it changes your strategy as far as what you're doing with that bowling ball, where you're standing on the lane, and etc. So as I progressed through my life, I figured out how to apply computer science to business problems, to sports problems, and now to pest control problems. And uh, well, I'm happy I was able to do that, and it makes me feel like I've had a successful uh, professional progression once I left academia. So
How do
any
you?
any any
Mhm.
any
Go ahead.
problem that you can express in numbers, uh, you can solve with computer science.
Hmm. Definitely. So, how do you translate the messy or biological reality of a pest infestation into clean, actionable data that computer can analyze?
Well, obviously, I can't walk into a property and individually count the number of roaches. Uh, so when I go in there, like I said, I do an inspection. I kind of get an idea for how bad it is, and like I mentioned earlier, I kind of categorize it on a level of 1 to 5. Right, 1 means nominal, very few pests. 2 means low infestation. 3 means moderate infestation. 4 means a heavy infestation, and 5 kind of represents an apocalyptic infestation. Uh, then I go in and treat, and whatever whatever treatments I use, um, I make a note of that in in my treatment log. Then I return for a follow up inspection a week or a month later, and it's like, well, this one started at a 5, apocalyptic infestation. I applied chlorphenapyr, and now we're at a 0, right? So I log that information, and then you can write a program to analyze that data. And the next time you're facing roaches, you can query your program and say what's the best what's the best insecticide to use in this setting, and that's actually relatively easy. What's challenging is you don't go for roaches and just spray, okay? And even if that is all you do, some liquid insecticides contain multiple active ingredients. So there's an interaction effect, right? If you're spraying temperate FX, that has uh, I think beta cyfluthrin and imidacloprid. So you're asking yourself, what killed those roaches, the imidacloprid or the beta cyfluthrin? That's the question. And on top, so you can have insecticides with multiple ingredients. On top of that, you're applying a spray, and in that spray, you're adding one or more insect growth regulators to keep those roaches from reproducing. And there are 4 different insect growth regulators on the market. So you're in your tank, you're looking at maybe 2 insecticides and 1 to 4 insect growth regulators, right?
Hmm.
Uh, on top of that, you use some other products to kill roaches in a different way. You're probably using a powder in a or a dust in a duster, right? So you uh, pump some of that dust into the pipe chases and maybe under the washer and dryer, and that dust is typically going to be in a different class than what's in your spray tank. And on top of that, you're using a bait, which is in a little syringe. It has the consistency of maybe peanut butter, and you apply a little bit of that anywhere that roaches like to hang out, especially on the hinges of kitchen cabinets. And you on each hinge you put enough bait that's about the size of a grain of rice, right? So you're looking when you go in and do that roach treatment, you're looking at maybe 2 different insecticides in your tank, plus up to 4 different insect growth regulators, plus a dust that has 1 or 2 active ingredients, plus a bait that can have between 1 and 3 active ingredients. So you put all that in your data, and you know talking to that model and figuring out, you know I want to put 1 insecticide in my tank, what should that be? That's an easy question, right? The difficult question is, we're going to use a bait, a dust, a spray, and some insect growth regulators. What's the best combination of those items? What class of chemical do I want to use in the tank, in the dust, and in the bait? So getting that optimal combination, that's the difficult question, and that's what that uh, statistical analysis really does.
Mr. Dog, as the founder of Lead Pest Strategies, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My I have to tell you, it's uh, pest control is surprisingly interesting, and it's something new to learn, and I'm enjoying it. So surprisingly, most people I think would uh, not enjoy dealing with roaches and rodents and stuff like that. But it's interesting work, and insects don't creep me out except for hornets. I don't like hornets very well. So my short, I went and got a terminal degree, a PhD in computer science, and to do that, you really have to be a lifelong learner. So I'm running this business. I'm learning something new. It's enjoyable, keeps me busy, and the real the reality is I have a wife and a son and a daughter and a cat and a dog who are all still kind of spending my money. So still need to make a living. It's interesting and fun, and it allows me to kind of feed my habit as a lifelong learner. So I guess those are kind of my short-term and long-term goals. And uh, as far as another long-term goal, when I get too old to work, I plan to sell the company for as much as I can, and I guess leave that money to my kids, or use it to take care of myself when I'm really old.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Dog, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
My piece of advice is that, uh, excuse me, I have to cough a little bit here.
Go ahead.
My piece of advice is, when you're faced with a new chapter in your life, uh, treat it. Just bear in mind that nothing is ever as good or as bad as you imagine. So when you enter a new chapter of your life, uh, whatever you're faced with, give it a try. Give it a try. You might like it. If you don't like it, you can change. And whatever comes up, just give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't like your job, you can make your own job. Yeah, if you
Yes.
don't like your job or your career, you can make your own job that you enjoy and have the freedom that you want. And when I was younger, if someone had told me, well, you can, if you don't like the IT industry, you can just quit. You can get out of the IT industry and run a pest control company and still use your computer science skills. If somebody had told me that, I would have thought they were crazy. So if there's something you want to try, either a hobby or job or a business, and you don't think the skill set that you have maps to that target, don't be so sure. One of the things that I really enjoy is that the skill set that I have, uh, I like to apply it to new and unusual problems like pest control. So never underestimate your skill set. Use the skills that you have to do whatever you're trying to do, and if necessary, you can build new skills along the way. So yeah, things are never as bad or as good as you think they're going to be going in. And just like the old man in the book, the old man in the sea. I mean, he knew how to fish. He got out there. Uh, he fished and caught a big fish, and the sharks ate it. And that's the way. I guess that's the way it goes. Uh, but just get out there and do your best, and it's not ever going to be as bad as you think. It's not going to be a disaster. You're going to be okay.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Dog, and thank you for that advice. And what will be your piece of advice or recommendation? A piece of recommendation that influence your journey, or books that you influence your journey, Mr. Dog.
Like I said, the Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway, that was a big one. And that's, if you've ever seen the book, it's a relatively short book. It looks a lot like a pamphlet, written with straightforward everyday language. It's easy to read, but has I think a pretty big philosophical impact if you read the book. The other book that I read, I can't remember who the author is, but it was kind of a Southeastern Europe travel style novel called Black Lamb, Gray Falcon. And when I read that, as you're probably aware, in that there's a kind of a military confrontation there in Bosnia in the 90s, and again later in Kosovo. And what I learned about that area of Europe, reading that book, Black Lamb, Gray Falcon, is that there are many different cultures in that small little area, And each culture and the relationships between all those cultures and thus the people is actually very, very complicated and very nuanced. And I don't think that the American diplomatic apparatus and the American military apparatus were sophisticated to to really understand all the nuances of what was going on over there. And having said that, historically, I don't, I don't think that I would have a even today a better uh, solution than I guess what was done in the past. Uh, but the lesson I learned from that book, Black Lamb, Gray Falcon, is that every everything in the world, right? No exceptions. Uh, if there's something in the world that you're not familiar with that you think is going to be pretty straightforward and easy, that's never the case. Everything is everything that you can imagine is more nuanced and more complex uh, than you as a non-expert uh, think it is. And pest control, as a younger person, I thought, oh well, pest controller just goes to somebody's house and sprays bug juice, and that's it. That's that's not true. It actually takes a deeper understanding of pest biology, uh, the different classes of chemicals and how they work. So, for example, something's been eating my lawn, and it's been eating my lawn for years, and I figured out that it's June bug larvae, right,
Mm-hmm.
that are eating my lawn, and you can get rid of those. But the way you get rid of them is you apply to your lawn imidacloprid granules, but you have to apply them around June 15th. And if you miss that date by much, the grubs are so far down on the ground that that chemical is not going to get to them. So even something as simple as June bugs, it's more complicated than it looks. So yes, you can get rid of them, but you have to target the pest life cycle at the correct time. And I remember last year when the June bugs emerged, you know, on my in my backyard on my patio, there were probably 2 or 3 June bugs per square inch. So I mean, it was the dog and the cat were both sitting at the patio door looking out in amazement at the number of June bugs there were out there. And I do structural pest control, which is 7A, and I'm not licensed to treat somebody's lawn or garden for pests. That requires a separate license. So looking out at those those trillion bed bugs on my patio, I kind of it's like, well, maybe those June bug larvae are eating my lawn, my front lawn, and as it turns out, they were. So it just requires more information, more nuance, and more research than you would think. And I think that's probably true across the board for everything in life.
Thank you, Mr. Doug, for the recommended book. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in sixth season, comedy 101 in third season, and my geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 in fourth season, science 101, sex 101 in its third season, and my baby podcast trivia 101, well, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and Motivation 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Dog, if you could solve one persistent global past problem with the unlimited computational budget, which would you choose and what would your approach be?
I think I would choose to solve the problem of insect pesticide resistance. Some pests can become like I said, if you over apply, they can become immune to pesticides, like mosquitoes and roaches. And I would like to solve that problem. And I think the key to doing that is to start selling consumers pesticides by the ounce instead of by the jug. Would be a good first step.
So, Mr. Dog, can you please invite the listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sure, you can support us on Facebook, of course, on LinkedIn, and I have links to those resources on my main pest control website, which is buzzkillpestcontrol.biz.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Dog Wampler, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So, Mr. Dog, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
Monica, people, see you soon.